Robert the Bruce sat on a small, quick horse, gripping a battle axe, and watched an armored English knight lower a lance and spur straight at him. What the King of Scots did in the next few seconds set the tone for 2 days that would shatter the largest army England had ever sent north. The knight was Sir Henry de Bohun, young, powerful, mounted on a heavy war horse, encased in steel, carrying a lance built to punch a man clean out of the saddle. Brus had no lance and no armor to match. By every rule of medieval combat, he was about to die. He did not die. As de Bohun thundered down on him, Brus waited, turned his nimble horse aside at the last instant, rose in his stirrups, and brought the axe down through the knight's helmet and skull in a single blow. The axe handle shattered with the force of it. De Bohun was dead before he hit the ground. That was the first minute of the Battle of Bannockburn in June of 1314, and it told both armies everything about the 2 days to come. To understand why it mattered, you have to understand how badly the ODDS favored England. For years, Robert the Bruce had been clawing Scotland back from English control, one castle at a time. By 1314, almost everything was his, except one great prize, Stirling Castle, which still held an English garrison. The Scots had it under siege, and a bargain had been struck. If an English army did not relieve the castle by midsummer, it would surrender. That was a challenge the English king could not ignore. That king was Edward II. He raised an army that was, by the standards of the age, overwhelming. Heavy cavalry, the finest armored knights in the kingdom, thousands of infantry, and the deadly English and Welsh longbowmen who had butchered Scottish armies before. The best modern estimates put his force somewhere between 15,000 and 25,000 men, the largest army England had ever marched into Scotland. It was not even purely English. The chronicler John Barbour lists knights from France, Gascony, Germany, and Brittany, along with Welsh and Irish contingents, and even Scots who had thrown in with Edward. It was the full weight of a great medieval power, gathered to crush one stubborn king. Robert the Bruce could field perhaps 5,000 to 7,000. Many were common spearmen, some described as ragged and even shoeless. He had almost no cavalry, no more than 500 light horse, and far fewer archers than the enemy. On open ground, in a straight fight, he would be crushed, and he knew it. Therefore, he refused to give Edward open ground. This was the Bruce's genius. He chose the battlefield with enormous care, a stretch of boggy, broken country near the Bannockburn stream, hemmed in by marsh and soft ground. It was terrain that strangled the one weapon Edward relied on most, the mounted charge of heavy knights. A wall of armored horsemen needs firm, open field to be terrible. Force it into a narrow, wet funnel, and it becomes a traffic jam of expensive, frightened animals. Brus went further and shaped the ground with his own hands. Where the English horse would have to advance, his men dug pits and hid sharpened stakes in the turf, small traps meant to break a charging line of heavy cavalry before it ever reached the spears. He was not waiting to see what Edward would do. He was building the battlefield in advance to punish the one move Edward was almost certain to make. Then Brus did something with his infantry that changed everything. His men fought in schiltrons, tight blocks of spearmen bristling with long spears in every direction, like a human hedgehog. This was not new by itself. Years earlier, William Wallace had used schiltrons at Falkirk, but he had used them standing still as a defensive wall, and English arrows had shot them to pieces where they stood. Brus did the opposite. He drilled his schiltrons for months to move, to advance across broken ground while holding formation, to attack. He turned a shield into a spear. If you like a commander who forces a stronger enemy to fight the exact battle it is worst at, subscribe. This is the whole reason Redoubt exists. On the first day after Brus killed de Bohun and the English vanguard was thrown back, a Scottish knight named Sir Alexander Seton slipped out of the English camp and defected. He told Brus something priceless. The English were disorganized, pinned into bad ground between the streams, and their morale was low. They could be beaten and beaten now. So on the morning of the second day, Brus did the thing no one expected a smaller medieval army to do against heavy cavalry. He attacked. His schiltrons advanced off their high ground and drove straight into the packed English host below. It was a disaster for England. Edward's army was crammed into a narrow space between the marsh and the burn, with no room to deploy. The great cavalry charge that was supposed to smash the Scots could barely form up. Horses floundered in the soft ground. The schiltrons pressed forward like moving walls of spear points, and the English knights, unable to maneuver, were shoved back into their own infantry behind them. The whole enormous army began to compress into a helpless, tangled mass. The English tried to save it with their longbows, the war-winning weapon that had shredded the Scots before. For a moment, the archers began to tear into the Scottish flank. But Brus had foreseen exactly this danger, and he had held back his one small asset for it. He sent his 500 light horsemen under Sir Robert Keith smashing into the unprotected archers, scattering them before they could do their work. With the bows swept away, there was nothing left to stop the schiltrons. The English army broke. What had been the mightiest host England could raise dissolved into a rout. Thousands of men trapped against the water, drowning and dying in the panic. Edward II himself was hustled off the field and barely escaped capture, fleeing for his life while his great army came apart behind him. Bannockburn did not end the war by itself, but it was the hammer blow that broke English control of Scotland, and it made Robert the Bruce's crown real. 14 years later, England formally recognized Scottish independence, and the small kingdom that was supposed to be swallowed remained its own. The scale of it is what stays with you. The chronicler John Barbour, whose long poem The Brus is one of our main sources, and the modern historian Geoffrey Barrow, whose biography of Brus is the standard account, both describe the same essential thing. A poor, outnumbered, half-armed people beat the richest and most powerful army their enemy could build because their king understood one truth better than his opponent. Numbers only win where numbers can be used. Take that away, and the giant is just a large, slow target. Robert the Bruce could not outspend England. He could not out-arm it. Therefore, he made sure the fight happened somewhere England's strength turned into weakness. And there, on 2 days of bloody ground by a Scottish stream, he crushed it. If you want more commanders who humbled far greater powers, subscribe to Redoubt. New story every few days, and the next one is already waiting.